Let me start this video off with a story. I was never a big fan of the Ubisoft Far Cry games. I finished Far Cry 3, but Far Cry 4 was so boring and repetitive, I dropped it somewhere in the middle and never finished. I was curious about Far Cry Primal, but at first glance, it was more of the same gameplay loop, and I was going to refund it. But then I disabled the HUD and saw this. This was a quote by user Inquisitor Alice I read on the Resetter forums while researching this video. It was a thread discussing the fun of playing games without a HUD. They continue. Suddenly, entire game has changed. Without all those flashy markers, text reminders about how many herbs you need to find and minimap. Entire tone have changed. It wasn't annoying fetch quest simulator anymore. I was the caveman who was trying to survive, tracking down animals by following pockets and learning how to throw spears and use bows without any on-screen helpers. I still used the map, but I still had to actually explore the area and look for resources and campfires. Playing Far Cry Primal without HUD was a whole different experience. This shit was so incredibly immersive, and it looked stunning as well. I've played Primal for 33 hours, finished all the side quests and explored the whole map, and it was one of my best gaming experiences ever. I hate HUDs, absolutely despise them. I wish I could play every game without the HUD present. I wish more game developers would make games without the HUD. Why do I hate them so much, you ask? Why am I waging a war on a UI element, you ask? Why am I making an entire YouTube video just to hate on HUDs, you ask? The answer is simple. Immersion. Immersion is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, especially in video essays. So to make this video more immersive, I'm actually going to add some HUD elements to this video. There you go. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Where was I? Oh right, immersion. Immersion can be of three types. First is imaginative immersion. This relates to the narrative of the game. It's the feeling you get when a really good story pulls you in, when you engage with the story fully and start to care about the characters in the game. You laugh at the jokes and cry at the ending, while the lore and backstory fill in the details. It's akin to watching a good movie or TV series.
What did you think of the dish? Did I not tell you that choice ingredients make all the difference?
I couldn't stop myself. I'm afraid I finished it all.
No matter. Just tell me, what did it taste like?
Like shell fruit and mushrooms, I suppose. But also, like my mother holding my hand during a storm. Like the warmth of a fire on a cold night. How can I be remembering this?
Not all stories are best told with words. Flavors and smells offer another way to reach the heart. And I did promise you a story after all.
Where did you learn this recipe?
A Sarantu woman taught it to me on a cold night. On this very spot, as a matter of fact.
Wait. A Sarantu woman?
Yes, she was kind, with an easy laugh, but also fierce in her convictions. Not unlike you.
What else do you remember about her?
It was a long time ago, I am afraid. But I remember she had a beautiful singing voice, and she had your eyes. Or is it that you have hers?
Second type is challenge-based immersion. Challenge-based immersion is what game developers often refer to as the flow state. This is the state of mind where you are fully absorbed and engaged in the work you are doing or the game that you are playing. When you are in this zone, time seems to slip by and no distraction can break your focus. For games, this is also called the fun zone. To achieve this state of mind, game developers try to keep the challenge of the game difficult enough to where you have to lock in and concentrate hard to win, but easy enough that you don't get frustrated and quit. It's a tough balancing act because every player has a different ability level. If it's too easy, the player will get bored. Too hard, and they'll quit out of frustration. Good games will often keep you in this zone for longer and longer by giving you some downtime in between action-packed gameplay sections.
You have forced my hand. Now you shall face what I truly am.
The third type of immersion is sensory immersion. This is what is typically considered to be immersion. Is the immersion experienced from the realism of the audiovisual experience. When the game world feels so real that you forget that you're playing a game, you become the character themselves. High fidelity graphics help, but it's not the end all be all for achieving immersion. A good art style is leagues better than any ray traced ball hair. And this is the kind of immersion that HUDs often break. Unfortunately, HUDs are a necessary evil. From the first video game ever made, we've had to rely on HUDs. Pong had a HUD for keeping score, and so did Space Invaders. As video games evolved as a medium, the games got more and more complex, and with them the HUDs did too. How else were we supposed to keep track of all of our troops in Warcraft? Although there were exceptions, most if not all games featured HUD as we entered the 2010s. But then one game changed it all. Although 2008's Dead Space was not the first game to feature no HUD, it was certainly the most influential one. Famous for its use of diegetic UI, Dead Space's decision to forego one of the most ubiquitous elements of gaming was quite brave. It heightened the sense of danger and horror by stripping away the one thing every gamer held near, taking you out of the comfort zone of mini-maps and quest logs. It thrust you into the cold, dark corridors of the space station. A few UI elements still existed in the game, of course, but they were well integrated into the game itself. This is called a diegetic HUD, where what you see is what your character also sees. This worked well, mainly because the game was of a survival horror genre, a genre that rewards making players uncomfortable. This meant that not all games could start ripping out their HUDs right away. That's why we didn't immediately see any game developers jumping at the thought of removing the HUD from their games. But almost 16 years, 2 sequels, a remake, and a spiritual successor later, slowly but surely the tides are turning against HUDs. There are more games now that can be played without HUD than ever before, with plenty of games offering the option to turn it off. This should make me happy, right? With so many games letting me turn off the HUD. Although I love seeing this evolution towards a HUD-less future, I don't think this is enough. It's taking too damn long, and game developers are not being aggressive enough in getting rid of these damn things. I don't have the patience to wait for it to die a slow natural death. I want it dead, and I want it dead now. I have some ideas on how to do it, but first let me explain in detail why I want to commit Sudoku on a UI element in the first place. For other reasons, I hate HUDs is simply because they are too damn useful. In a lot of games, I just stop looking at the world and end up staring at a minimap because honestly, it's the only thing needed to play the game. Look at Metal Gear Solid 1. With how useful the minimap is, I'm staring at the map to look out for guards. Same with The Witcher 3. This is why I had to turn off the minimap to actually enjoy playing The Witcher 3. But when I did, there was another problem. I got lost since I couldn't see any of the objectives. It was too damn useful. This is why I can't just turn off HUDs in games and call it a day. The games are not designed to be played without a HUD. I wouldn't know what the current objectives are, nor where to go. Instead of enjoying such beautiful worlds, I have to spend most of my time looking at minimaps and objective markers and detection indicators and compasses filled with random things to do. It becomes this ugly crutch without which the game becomes unplayable. Another reason I don't like HUDs is the one I stated before. Simply because it ruins immersion. It separates me as the player from the character on the screen. When I play games, immersion is the biggest thing that brings me joy. I like role-playing as a character who could exist in that world. But that immersion is broken by all these conveniences that break the world down into a simple checklist of things to do and sights to see. I'm not surprised by anything in a game anymore, because the minimap already tells me if there's something worthwhile to do there or not. The places in between map markers just become a blur as you travel from one part of the map to another, or worse, fast travel from place to place. The promise of open world games was that the game world was so big and so open that you could get lost in it, discovering all these amazing places organically. This is the philosophy that Breath of the Wild took with its open world, and no doubt a huge aspect in why people love that game so much. It's the same with Elden Ring. Letting the players discover all these amazing places for themselves and trusting the players with their curiosity instead of dragging the player around by their hair until they've seen everything the developers have put into the game. Game designers need to get comfortable with the idea of players not seeing everything in the game. Just to be clear, when I say games don't need a HUD, I'm talking about a subsection of games here. Mainly AAA action-adventure games with high graphical fidelity and giant open worlds. This obviously does not apply to every game on the planet. A lot of games are too complex to be played without a HUD being present. A city builder game, for example, would not work without a HUD. But Assassin's Creed though? Does that really need a HUD? Actually, fun fact, the original Assassin's Creed was designed to be played without a HUD. Can you imagine a world where Assassin's Creed games were all designed without a HUD? I want to live in that timeline. It's really sad that the majority of games did not learn anything from Dead Space diegetic design. And honestly, for a lot of games, HUDs aren't even necessary. Just by making a few tweaks to the game design, game developers could legitimately remove the need for HUDs in their games. It's not easy, mind you. This requires a lot of creativity and out-of-the-box thinking from developers. But it's not impossible either. I think even developers are coming around to this. A lot of games these days have an option to turn off the HUD or selectively turn off certain elements of the HUD. But I say it's not good enough. It only works if you've already beaten the game and know how to play the game. Otherwise, you're just asking to get lost. No, the developers need to come at it from the other direction. The game from the ground up has to be developed with no HUD in mind and give the players the option to turn on certain HUD elements to make the game easier or more accessible. And I want to help accelerate this process. I want to be responsible for the end of HUDs in gaming. And I have a few ideas to do so. But I can't do it without your help. Like this video and share it so that I can get more game developers to be aware of this. If this video gets 10 likes, it's not a big number. I will make part 2 of this video, where we discuss techniques that help reduce the reliance on HUDs and further discuss the consequences of removing HUDs without careful consideration. Also, subscribe to this channel and turn on post notifications so you don't miss that video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.